All right, so we are very excited to talk to you guys this morning about the college admissions process. We know that there are a lot of options that are available for all of you as you start this journey this year of looking what you're going to do after you graduate from Andover High School. Some of you might want to apply to college, but you might want to defer your admission for a semester or a year to maybe take a gap year. That's something that I wish I had done when I had applied to college. Take a gap year, maybe travel, do community service, get some real world experience, work before you go to college, and really figure out what you want to do when you get there. Some of you might be interested in joining the military. Some of you might be interested in learning a specific trade. So all of those things we can help you with and look at the best option for you as you go throughout your senior year. So what we're going to do today is we're going to focus on the college admissions process today. And at the end, we're going to give you a copy of your updated transcript. And at that point, you really want to make sure that on your transcript, all your name, your address, your parents' name is spelled correctly, that all your grades are accurate, that you have no incompletes left over from a previous year, because that transcript is exactly what we're going to be sending to colleges. Okay? We're going to try to answer questions at the end. If you have a really burning question as we go along, feel free to raise your hand, but we'll try to take the most at the end. Okay? Oh yeah, and we're going to email the PowerPoint out to you guys, so you'll be able to have this information as well. But most of it is also in the handouts that we gave you this morning. So we're going to talk about today some fall events that are coming up. So important dates for you guys to look at. Next Wednesday night in the Collins Center, we are having an Understanding Standardized Testing night at 6:30 p.m. So if you're still confused about how do my old SAT scores correlate to my new SAT scores, how do my ACT scores correlate to my SATs, we'll be talking about that night. So that's a great time to come with you and your parents if you have questions. The following Wednesday, September 28th, we're having financial aid night, and I highly, highly encourage your parents to attend, or your guardians, or you, if you're really interested in the process of how to file the FAFSA form, how to look for scholarships. College can be very expensive, so we want to make sure that you have all the information you need when applying. There will be a college fair at Northern Essex Community College Monday, October 19th from 6 to 8. Will there be lots and lots of colleges from all around the country that will have information. You can go and talk to those admissions reps. And college rep visits that we've been having in our Career Center right across the hall. I'm going to talk about those in detail a little later. All right, so I'm sure all of you at this point are thinking about, how do I come up with my college list, my final college list of which colleges I want to apply to? One thing that we really want to stress to you is that there is no one perfect college for everybody. I have had a lot of kids in the past say, this is my dream school. If I don't get in, I don't know what I'm going to do. And a lot of times they don't get in, and they get into maybe their third or fourth choice college, and it ends up being an amazing experience for them. And they're like, wow, why did I ever want to go to that other college? This is the best place for me. So there's a lot of different amazing schools that you can get into. You want to make sure, though, that you have a balanced list. So we're going to go to the next slide and look at how you can make yourself a balanced list. The average Andover High School student usually applies to between 6 and 9 colleges. Some students apply to less. Some students apply to a little more, but that's the average. We want you to have a list that is balanced, and these are the criteria that we look at. One is your reasonable reach school. which means that that college's SAT or ACT scores and GPA might be a little bit higher than what your scores are. So we call that like a reasonable reach. A match school, which is where we want most of your colleges to be in the range of, match colleges have pretty much your SAT scores or ACT scores and GPA are really on the average of what they accept their students at. A likely school is when your profile is higher than what that school is looking for. So you have a very, very, very strong chance of not only getting in, but maybe getting a merit scholarship as well. And we also recommend that everybody has a financial safety. We know that college is very expensive. We want everyone to have a college that you know that you can pay for without taking out a tremendous amount of loans. For people from Massachusetts, that usually entails either one of the UMasses, UMass Lowell, UMass Amherst, UMass Boston, UMass Dartmouth, or one of the Massachusetts state universities such as Framingham State, Salem State, Fitchburg State, or community college, Northern Essex, Middlesex Community College, Bunker Hill. They are all your best buy for your money. So we always recommend that you apply to at least one of those. We want all of the schools on your list to be schools that you would be happy going to. Oftentimes I have students saying, well, yeah, I'm going to apply to this school just because I know I can get in, but I would never want to go there. And I'm like, well, then why would you even apply there? Because what if that's the only one you get into? You want to make sure that every school on that list is a place where you would be happy going, okay? And sometimes, say, I'm going to apply to Harvard just to see if I can get in. That's a lot of time. It's a lot of money. They have I forget what the application fee is for there. It was probably like $75 or something. You have to write a lot of essays. We don't recommend doing that. Apply to colleges that you'd be happy going to and that is in a reasonable reach and a good range for you. All right. Now we're going to talk about the deadlines. So there's a variety of different deadlines that colleges have. Who knows the difference between early decision and early action? Yes.
Early decision is the binding contract that you're going to go to that school to get in, and early action is just basically applying early and it's not binding.
Exactly. Perfect. So early decision, you can only apply to one college early decision, and if you apply early decision, you have to sign a binding agreement. You have to sign it, your parents have to sign it, and your counselor has to sign it, saying that I promise that I will only apply to this college early decision, and if I'm accepted, I will go there. This is a binding contract. I will only sign these contracts if my student has taken an official tour at that school, if they've done an overnight at that school, and hopefully sat in on a class at that school. Because if you haven't, and you sign this contract, you might go and realize that you really do not like this school, and I would feel responsible for that. So you want to make sure that if you're applying early decision, you are 99.9% sure that this is your top choice for college, and you've done a lot of research on it. Early action, on the other hand, you can apply to as many schools as you want early action. And the beauty of early action is that if you say you have a November, like UMass Amherst has early action November 1st deadline, and you'll probably find out maybe by mid-December if you get in or not. But you don't have to tell them if you want to go until May 1st. So you have all that time to research other schools, to go visit schools, to compare financial aid packages. And that's the other thing with early decision, you can't compare financial aid packages. So you always want to make sure that you can afford that early decision school as well. There's one very rare category called single choice early action or restrictive early action, and that actually only applies to, I believe, 4 colleges, which is Harvard, Princeton, Stanford, and Yale, okay? So those are the only 4 colleges that say you can only apply to our school early action. We won't make you sign a binding agreement, but you can't apply to any other private colleges early action. We will allow you to apply to some public colleges early action, but you can only apply to our school early action. I don't know if any of you have ever gotten like a priority or VIP application. Has any of you ever gotten one of those sent to you, some of you? So a priority VIP application is oftentimes a marketing tool that the college is using to get more applicants. So oftentimes they'll waive your application fee and they want you to use their special app, and they say it's a fast track to admissions. And if you're interested in that college, I highly recommend you using that. If you're not interested and really have no interest in it whatsoever, I probably wouldn't, waste your time on it. Rolling admission. So some colleges have rolling admission, which means that they accept you on a first come, first served basis. So Quinnipiac, for example, has rolling admission, which means that if you apply in November, you will probably find out in maybe 6 to 8 weeks if you've gotten in or not. Okay? So they accept kids on a first come, first served basis. And then regular decision, all colleges have that. So UMass Amherst, for example, has a January 15th regular decision deadline. If you apply regular, you will usually find out maybe in March or the early April if you get in or not. All right, and next slide. Okay, so who here has gotten one of these pink passes so far and seen one of the college admissions reps over here? How many? All right, so quite a few of you have already. Okay, so we are really, really lucky at Andover High School to have about 100 different admission reps from colleges come to our guidance conference room right across the hall. And what's great about this is that rep will come, and if you sign up to meet with that representative, it's usually in a small group, you can meet with that rep, they'll answer all kinds of questions that you have about the school, and the rep will ask you some questions, like what major you might be interested in, or what kinds of things interest you about our college. Oftentimes, almost always, the rep who comes to visit our school is the one who will be reading your application. So it's a really great way for you to introduce yourself to that representative, and they can put a face with your application. And it's a great way to show what we call demonstrated interest. Several colleges, you kind of get extra points in your admissions process by showing demonstrated interest. And that can be visiting the school, having an interview at the school, and seeing and meeting with this admissions rep when they come to the high school. So the process is if you have in your Naviance account, the colleges in your Naviance account under colleges I'm thinking about, if you have your list there, then Naviance will automatically send you an email when that college rep is coming to Andover High School. And if you would like to go, you can just register on Naviance, but then you have to go see Mrs. Lindsay, she's our guidance secretary who sits behind the counter, and pick up one of these pink passes. You need to get this pass at least 24 hours in advance to the college rep coming, because you need to have your counselor sign it and your teacher needs to sign it of whose class you will be missing. Now, if you have a test during the class, when this rep is coming and it's your first choice college and the teacher's like, you can't go, and you start freaking out because you really want to see this rep, ask your teacher respectfully if you can please go and introduce yourself to the rep for 5 minutes and just say, hi, my name's Kim Berge. Ithaca is my first choice for college, but I have a AP bio test right now, so I'm really sorry, but I just want to introduce myself. And that will be fantastic. And usually that rep will give you their business card, and they'll say, you can email me any questions you can have. So don't get into a fight with your teacher if they don't let you go. Just want to make sure we have that up there. All right, great. Oh, and I also just wanted to let people know that, for example, like this coming Monday, Framingham State University is coming, someone from Simmons College, Syracuse, Merrimack, Elon, and Colgate. So reps from all those colleges are coming on Monday. So if you're interested, please see Mrs. Lindsay to get a pass. Okay, so once you have your college list and you know where you're applying, the next step is to complete a transcript release form. Has anyone filled out one of these yet? A couple of you have. So this is a transcript release form. You can pick this up. It's on a hanging folder on the counter in guidance. And what you do is you fill this out with your colleges. It can hold up to 6 colleges. If you have more than 6 colleges, you'll need another one of these sheets. You'll write your college, the city and state of the college, which is really important because there are several colleges that have the same name. So we want to make sure we're sending it to the right place. And your parent must sign this if you are under 18, because this is a confidential document that we're sending. And you need to submit this 4 weeks in advance of your first deadline. So if any of you have a November 1st deadline, you need to submit this to either Mrs. Lindsay or Mrs. Gould. She's our registrar. When you walk into guidance, she's right on the right-hand side. 4 weeks in advance. So if you have a November 1st deadline, please hand it in by October 1st. Okay? If you have a January 1st deadline, we need a little bit more than 4 weeks because we have that week off for the winter break. So we want to make sure we get everything out before we leave for that winter break. And Mrs. Gould, you can give it to. There are 3. The transcript release form fee is $3 per U.S. school and $4 for each international school. There's a question, yes? So what entails it? Mr. Duncan's going to talk about that? No? Yeah? Or Jane? Okay, one of it is going to talk about what is involved of what we send when you fill this out. Okay, so hold on a second. Thanks. Okay, and another question? Yes.
If you have, let's say, a November 1st deadline, can you submit one form with just the colleges?
That's a great question, and the answer is yes. So if you say, yeah, I know I'm going to apply to this school by November 1st, but I don't know what the rest of my list is, that's totally fine. So all you need to do is make sure, if you only know that you're applying to 1 or 2 schools at that point, all you have to do is put those on there, and then you can fill out another form later. Yep, you do not have to have your whole list decided by that point. Great question. You're going to bring in $3 per school that you're applying to, cash only, and that will cover, and then we'll give you a receipt so that you know, this yellow part will be your receipt, so that you know that you've turned in this form. Okay, Common App. So everybody can, if you guys can take out this white packet we gave you. Okay. The first page is we have a Common App Essentials page. The Common App, who here has already created a Common App account? Many of you. Okay, great. All right, so if you've created an account, you know that you need to create a password, and the password is a very high security password, so they want to make sure that you include a number and a symbol, and I think maybe an uppercase and lowercase letter. And also in this packet, we gave you a password keeper sheet, because we know that you're going to have a password for your Common App, for your College Board account, for your Naviance account. So sometimes a lot of those get confusing. So if you want to, for your FAFSA account, you can use this sheet to keep track of all your passwords that we have, that you're going to have. Okay. So you are going to have to, there's a whole section on the Common App about your family and background. So you're going to have to gather information about your parents, your siblings, if they've gone to college, what degree they got, what year they got that degree in. So we want to make sure you get all that information. And so all that information is listed on this sheet. And they're also going to ask you about the class size, which we have as 465. And they're also going to ask you what your class rank is. And we do not have class rank at Andover High School, which is why we send to colleges this bar graph. So they can see generally where your GPA falls, but we do not calculate class rank. So you're going to just check none out for class rank. Personal statement. So did any of you guys go to the essay writing workshop that we had yesterday? A couple of you, great, okay. So if you go to the second page of the Common App Essentials, on the bottom, they have the personal statement essay prompts. Okay, so they give you 5 essay prompts that you can read and look through and choose which prompt that you want to write about for your essay. Okay, so this is a really good form. For your essay, it's a 250-word minimum and a 650-word maximum. If you go over 650 words, it will cut off and they will not read it. So you want to make sure that that is doesn't exceed 650 words. Okay, FERPA. Does anyone know what FERPA means? Any brave souls? Ooh, someone knows what FERPA means, yes. That was so well said. Thank you so much. Excellent job. Right, we can skip the slides. So FERPA actually stands for, just go back one for 1 second. FERPA actually stands for the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act, which means that your transcript is a confidential document, which is it's private. It's a confidential document, which is why you have to sign this form giving us permission to send your transcript. Okay, so that's part of the FERPA. The other part of the FERPA that wonderful young woman just described is that, say I applied to Ithaca College and I got in. In September, when I attend next year in September, if I go to the admissions office and say, hey, do you still have my counselor recommendation and my teacher recommendation? And if they do still have it on file, under FERPA, I would have the right to read those recommendations. What the colleges are asking you to do is they're asking you to consider waiving your right to read those recommendations, because the colleges feel that if they are confidential recommendations, the writer is going to be more honest and candid, and they're going to hold a lot more weight. Some colleges won't even read the recommendation or consider it if you did not waive your right. So we do usually recommend that in that part on the Common App, you waive your right or give up your right to read your recommendation. Now, as your counselors, we're going to write you beautiful letters of recommendation, and any teacher who doesn't feel like they can write you a good one will probably say, you know what, maybe you should ask somebody else. So don't worry, we're going to write you beautiful recommendations. So the way to complete the FERPA form, okay, and this, you can, if some of you have done it already, great. It's really not that hard. It's just a tedious process. You're going to log on to the Common App. You're going to complete the entire education section within the Common App, and then you're going to add a college to your Common App list. At that point, you'll be able to go on your dashboard and click on one of the colleges. The FERPA question is found within the Recommender and FERPA tab of the application, and the release authorization link must be checked with the FERPA decision. So if you have any issues with this, come see your counselor. We can help you. We know exactly how to do it. But once you get there, it's pretty easy to have how to do it. Okay? And now Mrs. Jones is going to come and talk about assigning recommenders.
Thank you. People sometimes have that puzzled look when we're talking a little bit about the FERPA, and the other one that also can sometimes be confusing is assigning recommenders. In the senior checklist that we've given you, as well as the beautiful fall-colored orange brochure, we really outline those steps. So if you're not as clear as to what you're supposed to click and what you're supposed to fill out, once you're in the process of doing it, and for those of you who've already done it, it's very straightforward, and I know you'll be able to figure it out. So in signing the recommenders, this is the one where sometimes students do get a little confused. It's important to remember that we are a Naviance school. As you know, you've been using Naviance for the last couple of years, and that's how we send our recommendations and how the teachers send a recommendation. So you don't need to assign a teacher or a counselor to your common application. Every year there's a few students who do it, and it's a little bit of a process to sort of unassign it. So we really want you to pay attention to that process. After you've done the FERPA tab, you have to have at least, in order to do that, you have to have at least one school. You don't have to have your whole list, but you have to add one school to the common application that you are applying to. And before adding other recommenders to the Common App, ask the person also if she has a preference in mailing the recommendation, because this is the other part where it can be a little bit confusing. You're not going to add your teacher's name to Common App or your guidance counselor's name. But when you're working with your teachers, you're going to need to find out, are they going to send it through Naviance, or they're going to want to send it with regular mail. Colleges will accept both. So if you have a teacher who wants to send it by mail, it's going to be okay. They'll accept that. Counselors, such as ourselves, and the teachers will log into Naviance, and that's how they're going to take care of your recommendation. So Ms. Berge has a wonderful folder about the counselor letter recommendation that she's going to do a visual in a moment. But in order for us to do your to fill out your letter of recommendation, we're going to ask a couple things from you. How many of you have already, show of hands, done the student data sheet on Naviance? Great. Okay, so we're going to need that to be completed. And then also the parents have to fill a parent questionnaire, and some of your parents have already done that. And this also needs to be completed. The magic number is 4 weeks, because we really want to make sure that we have enough time to write, as Ms. Berge says, beautiful recommendations for you. In order for your parents to get the parent questionnaire, they need to have their own Naviance account. And in the past, maybe they've been using yours to kind of look at colleges and add colleges or look at the graphs there. They must have their own in order for that questionnaire to come up. If they don't remember their password or their login, they can email us, and we'll help them figure that out. Okay? We also, as we said, we will submit through Naviance, so we don't need any envelopes or any college forms. So teacher recommendation letters. How many of you have already asked a teacher, at least one teacher, to write you a recommendation? Great. Most all of you probably have, and some of you have asked two. Obviously, you're going to ask, if you haven't, you want to ask well in advance of the first college deadline, because again, they need to have notice. Some of the teachers even wrote recommendations if you asked them before the end of the school year. They wrote at least a draft over the summer. And it's also perfectly fine to ask a teacher that you're having now, especially if you've got a later application deadline, because they're going to get to know you currently in the classroom that they're teaching you. You're going to prepare the teacher recommendation folder that Ms. Berge, Ms. Vanna White is going to hold up. It's hard to see, but we have given you an example, which is going to include your your name and your contact information and your email address. Then you're going to list the schools that you're applying to. Then you're going to follow with the deadline. And then you're going to list the decision plan, whether it's early decision, early action, or regular decision. So that teacher has a folder, because I think that helps keep everybody organized, okay? We have a new thing. We've come into the 21st century on Naviance, and we've added the recommendation form on Naviance that you can fill out. Some of you in the spring might have already filled out the green recommendation form, but now we have that on Naviance, so you can type it up and fill out that questionnaire there, and then you can print it off and you can put it in your folder to give to the teacher, okay? We also, again, going back to what I said earlier about asking the teacher if they're sending it via Naviance or if they're sending it doing regular mail. If they're sending it through Naviance, then it's going to be an electronic submission, and you do not need to provide envelopes, addressed and stamped envelopes for your teacher. But if they are going to mail it, there's another step in this process where you're going to have to print off a common application teacher form from the common app and fill it out and attach that for each school with the envelope stamped, which I know you know how to use. You probably don't use it very often, but if you need any help with that, we can help you how to address that envelope as well, okay? So, and again, sometimes you're applying, a good question was about the early action or early decision deadline. If you're doing that, and you can just give that initial envelope to your teacher, you may have an additional folder once you finalize the list for later dates, and that's okay too, okay? Right, and then the other key, again, is to not assign the recommenders. We don't want to do that on the Common App. We tell you that 100 different ways. But also, teachers will send out their recommendations directly. Once you've given them this folder, then you don't need to really worry about it. But it is really nice to follow up with a thank you. Teachers spend a lot of time writing the recommendations, and I think they appreciate a thank you from the student. It means a lot to them. Okay, and there's another example of the teacher recommendation folder that you might see a little bit more clearly. Okay, transcript packets. We've already talked a little bit about how to get your release of your records or the transcript. So once you give us that list of colleges, then that signifies to us like, oh, here's the student and they have a November 1st deadline. And so we're going to start working on pulling together your packet of information that we send from here. The transcript will include your senior schedule, so the courses that you have, your report card, and this is where students want to make sure they always are asking, like, when are they going to get the senior grade? So if you have a November 1st deadline, when we submit before that, that transcript that we include will be the end of your junior year transcript. They'll be able to see what you're taking. You also will add that on the common application. You have to actually add the courses that you're taking, but they'll be able to see the senior courses. And then when the first term ends, we automatically, and the report card is done, we will automatically send that to the schools on your list. So you don't need to worry about that. You don't need to fill another transcript request. And then that gets sent to the colleges, which is, even though there's a November 1st deadline, they are waiting to make decisions because they are looking at your senior report card. That first term grades will be important to the colleges. And that's why a lot of those notifications for the November 1st deadline would be before we break for the winter break. So to late December. Okay? In that, we also will include the GPA graph, which we've given to you, the counselor recommendation, the secondary school report, which is something that we fill out more specific information about Andover High School, and then the school profile. So that will all go electronically to each school that you apply to. So here's the part where the common application and the transcript match. I like to say where they become friends. Naviance and the Common App get linked up together. And on the Naviance, the first thing you do, you go to colleges I'm applying to. And then in order for us to send everything electronically, you must first verify your Common App email and the date of birth. And that's why we gave you that password keeper, because there's a lot of different passwords and emails and logins and usernames you need to keep track of. And so these have to match in order for us to be able to then process your application request. This information will only be used to link your accounts, okay? And you only have to do this one time. If the Common App email and date of birth do not match, we can't send your letter, and we'll track you down. It happens every once in a while that someone inadvertently either changed their email or they inadvertently added the wrong date of birth, but we can help you figure that out. So if you are also applying to Common App schools with different applications, because I like to refer to this as the common, uncommon application experience, because everybody has a little bit of a caveat to this. And some of you have seen that some of your lists of schools have common applications, and they'll take the Common App. Some of the schools, like Salem State, has their own online application. You got to create your own account and fill it out. The information is very similar to what you're doing for the Common App. And then there are a couple of other, like Ms. Berge, the VIP application is a little bit different, or a fast track. Sometimes they'll have different applications. Your transcript packet may not be able to be submitted electronically. It really just depends on the school. Most of them, some of you can, like Salem State, we can still do it, but others will not. And you must inform the counselor by indicating this information on the record release form. And then the transcript packet will print it out and will actually mail it. You don't need to provide an envelope to us or stamped. We'll take care of that for you. But again, if it's your teacher and they're mailing it, and they've done Common App schools and they're doing it with Naviance, but you have a couple of applications that don't take it through Naviance, you then have to provide an envelope stamped addressed for the school. Okay? And when you're in the middle of doing it, it'll be much clearer than what it is maybe at the moment. Some of you, this won't even matter. Some of you will really only have Common App schools, so you won't even need to worry about this. Okay? So just some tips to remember. Please be clear and understand that the college application consists of materials from 4 different sources, and they're all sent at different times. And it's okay if you submit your materials and I haven't submitted mine first. The colleges are really good mail houses, in a sense. They're really good at collecting data and getting it to the right folder. So it's perfectly fine. So the 4 sources are as follows. Your application, the common application or the college's own application, kind of sets the ball rolling and lets them know that you're applying. Then the second is what I talked about, the school transcript packet and counselor recommendation. Will all be sent together, and then that gets added to your file. The teacher recommendations, and they may come in via Naviance, or they may come in the snail mail way, and that's fine, and then they're going to put it together with your file. And then any SAT or ACT scores, which you are responsible for sending directly. We don't send them. They have to come from you, and you have to go on to the individual website and request to have your scores sent to that school. And sometimes students get a little confused about this. So those are the 4 different sources. So other parts of the application, and this is the part I read for about 20 years. And I liked the other stuff. Obviously, it was important to read, and I enjoyed finding out more about the student. But the real you part kind of gives a little bit of the life to the application. And this is your personal statement, otherwise known as the essay. And I see it hovering around you right now, because for those of you who have not finished, it sort of follows you morning, noon, and night. It will feel very good when you get that completed, and then it can sort of at least leave you on a regular basis, because it will be attached to your application, and once it's sent, it's gone. But that also tells the reader, and we just want to learn more about you. And we're willing to read your essays and to talk with you individually when we have our individual meetings. For those of you who are stuck and feeling like you need a little support around this, we can certainly do it. It also might include your activities resume or your activities profile. How many of you have done an activities profile or a resume already? Okay, great. Many of you have. Some of the schools will allow you to submit or upload that activities resume when you are submitting your application. Others of you might choose to bring that with you if you have an interview with the school. That can be really helpful in helping the interviewer get more information about you in a succinct way. You may also choose to give that activities resume or profile to your counselor. I love it if students give it to me. I always ask my students if they have one to please email one to me or drop one by. And you may also, if you want, give it to the teacher or teachers who are writing you a recommendation. You could stick it in the folder. They may not know some of the other activities that you're involved with, and it's not to say they're going to write about it, but I think it helps give them a more holistic view about you as a student and some of the experiences they have outside of the academic classroom. So, oops. No. I just wanted to talk about the college interview as well. There used to be that everybody had to have a college interview for all schools, and that has changed. And in some of the schools, it's not even an option. For some of the schools, it's an option, and you have if you're going to get to go to the campus and have an interview on campus, even if you're not 100% sure you want to apply, I would encourage you to have an interview. I've interviewed hundreds and hundreds of students, and it can really sort of enhance and help the overall process. It's sort of like the icing on the cake when you're reading an interview write-up, because you can talk about some of your interests and your passions. Even if you're a little bit hesitant or you feel like you might be more shy or sort of it's uncomfortable to brag about yourself, I think good interviewers can really sort of pull those experiences out of you. And an interview could never really hurt you unless you do something really atrocious, like I don't even know. If someone was really shy, I might say the student seemed a little nervous. I didn't learn a lot about her, but it wasn't going to necessarily hurt her. So I'd really encourage you to do that if you have the opportunity. There also are alums here in Andover who have gone to all different types of schools, and some of them will actually be interviewers for the college. So your interview could happen right here in Andover. And you would find information about that on the website. We as guidance counselors could also do mock interviews for you to give you the experience of what that's going to be like, but I think it's a worthwhile experience. And we've already talked about letters of recommendation. I mean, you obviously, if your teacher is writing one, you want to do well in the school, in the class that you're in right now. I think that would be helpful. And then making sure that you fill out all the other information to help us write a great recommendation. Okay, and next up, for an exciting topic, Mr. Duncan is going to talk about standardized testing.
All right, just try to bear with us. I know you guys it's early in the morning, so just a few more minutes, but this is important information. Just a reminder, some of the deadlines that are coming up. If you're planning on taking the October SAT, the late registration deadline is September 23rd. There's also a November 5th SAT as well as a December 3rd SAT. And the ACT is coming up. There's October 22nd and December 10th. So any of you guys, especially if you're applying early action, this could be your last chance to get in and take that test. Something important to know about the SAT is that you need to send your scores directly to the colleges yourselves. You can do that through the College Board website, so we can't do that for you. And that is the same as well with the ACT. You can send scores up to 4 scores for free when you sign up, but you have to send them before the date of the test. So you may or may not want to do that because you won't be able to see the scores before you send them. But if you have deadlines that are fast approaching, you may have to do that. So College Board will allow you to send 4 free schools. Super score. Who can explain what super score is? Anyone know what that means? Sure.
They take the highest score from each test.
Exactly. So if you take the SAT a couple of times and you do better one time on the math section, the next time you do better on the English, colleges will actually take the best of those scores and pair them up for you. ACT does not super score. And just remember that if you took the old SAT, we can't super score that with the new one. Okay. And just make sure that you send the scores in well before the deadline, because even though it's sent electronically, and I still don't understand why this is the case, but it can take like 3 weeks or more sometimes for the scores to get to your school. So you don't want to wait till like 3 days before your deadline to get those sent in. Okay. Luckily, a lot of schools now are test optional. This list is getting bigger and bigger. And there's a website called fairtest.org you can check out to find out if schools are test optional. So for some of you guys who have really wonderful grades here at AHS but maybe are not great standardized test takers, this could be a good option for you. Something to keep in mind, and this is really important, if you decide that you're going to apply to a test optional school and not send your test scores, you do not want to list your test scores on the Common App because they will see those. So there's a section on the Common App that asks for test scores. You don't have to do that if you're going to be doing test optional. Okay. Some examples are Bryant, College of the Holy Cross, Providence, and Stonehill, but there's lots and lots more. Okay. Scholarships, this is really important. They are based on academic merit and special talents. You really want to make sure that you check with each school to find out when the scholarship deadlines are. They're really important. You don't want to miss it. It's just like financial aid, and you don't want to miss those deadlines or you could miss out on big scholarships. Some other ones, tuition assistance for Mass public colleges and universities. We have an Adams Scholarship, the Abigail Adams Scholarship, which if you score in the 25th percentile of your school, you can get that tuition reimbursement. And there's another one called the Stanley Koplik Certificate of Mastery. And if you do well on your MCAS scores, and you also score high on the the AP test or an SAT 2, you might be able to qualify for that, which gives you tuition reimbursement for any of the Mass state schools as well. You can't get both though, so it's one or the other, just so you know. Okay, as far as scholarships go, there's lots of local scholarships, so I'm sure you guys are aware of. But on Naviance, you can find a list of scholarships. That's a great place to get started. As well, if you want to look a little more at like national scholarships or regional scholarships, you can look at fastweb.com, wirescholar.com, as well as sometimes the colleges will list scholarships on their websites. All right, student athletes. How many of you guys are student athletes in here? Awesome. So for you guys, you want to make sure that you register with the NCAA. If you're planning on trying to play Division I or II sports at college. And you must have a Common App and username and password to do this. You're going to register at the Eligibility Center website, which is eligibilitycenter.org. That's a tough one. It is early, thank you. Okay. So you're going to have to do that, and you're also going to have to fill out and complete the amateurism questionnaire for that. Okay. Special talents. For those of you guys who are artists or maybe a musician, a lot of colleges have special requirements for that. You might have to audition, submit a portfolio. If you're one of those students, you want to just find out exactly what that process is and get started early, and contact the schools to set up, if you need to, an audition or something like that. All right. This is my favorite slide. So gap year options, I wish I had done this. This is a really cool opportunity. If you're interested, could be a chance to kind of explore yourself a little bit, maybe travel either nationally, internationally. There's opportunities for internships, job skill training, as well as volunteer work. We do have a list of different gap year companies and opportunities for you, so if you're interested in that, come see us. And yeah, this can be a great way to do that. And if you are interested in gap year, I recommend that you still apply to colleges this year like you would any other student. But if you decide to do a gap year, most colleges will let you defer your enrollment. So that means you've been accepted, you can defer, you can do a gap year, and then you can go back that next year without having to reapply. But you want to check with the schools about that. Okay. All right. 3 reasons to start early. So raise your hand if you are a procrastinator. Me too. If you are a procrastinator, make sure you're aware of this and make sure you don't do this during your college process, your applications, because it will stress you out and it will make it a lot more difficult for you. So just try to stay organized. And you want to get started early. You want to break down each of the things that you need to do. If you do this, you're going to be less likely to make mistakes. You're going to have more time to perfect your applications. You're hopefully not going to miss any deadlines. And you're more likely to turn in the personal statement into a real work of art. And just less stress, which is great. All right. Final thoughts. Just keep in mind, guys, that senior year does count, not just this semester or this term, but all of the year. Sometimes colleges, hopefully this doesn't happen to anyone here, but they can rescind your acceptance if you do really poorly in your senior year. So it's important to do well all the way through. Let's see. Also, make sure that your email is appropriate. So if you have, when you're signing up for colleges, you may want to just create a new email, first initial, last name, something like that. So don't have anything too wild and crazy for emails. Facebook, I know you guys hear this all the time, but just remember that colleges can see things on Facebook, especially once you join a college's Facebook page. So you just want to remember that you don't want to put anything on there that your grandmother wouldn't want to see. And if things get tough, just come and see us. We're all here to help you, and we're happy to do so. All right, thank you.
All right, thank you guys for being super attentive. I know it's early. You guys have been a great audience. Now we can answer any questions that you guys might have that maybe we didn't answer today or that you're still confused about that we went over today. So yes, there's one over here. So his question was, in terms of sending your SAT scores, say you took your SATs in May and you did okay, and then you took them again this October and like both scores went up? So his question is, should I send both sets of scores so that they can see the improvement, or should I just send the top scores? So my recommendation would be just to send the top scores. Right. So I would say just send, if that November or October test date you scored higher in both categories of math and the critical reading and writing, then you would only need to send your top scores. But if you did better in math maybe back in May, but better in the critical reading and writing section this time around, you should send both scores so that the college can super score for you.
In some schools, some colleges, however, some students have brought to my attention, will ask, they want to see all your scores, even if you had taken them earlier, and they improved. And I think, so you want to sort of honor that within reason, but I would encourage you to have that conversation individually with your guidance counselor to sort of see what makes sense based on what the schools are asking for. Sometimes I've worked with students who have done both the ACT and the SAT. How many of you have taken both ACT and SAT? Great. And sometimes students will have strengths in both sets of scores, and then some results that maybe are not as strong. And in some cases, it makes sense to send both the SAT and the ACT because, again, the colleges really want to look at you in the best possible light that they can. They're not looking to, base decision on your lowest test score. They want to look and include your highest test score, whether that be for ACT or SAT. So again, that would be a great conversation to have with your counselor. That was a good question.
In the green?
Yeah, the question is it better to include a personal recommendation if you have one or not include it? Most colleges have gotten really tight with recommendations, and they may only, you'll have a few on your list maybe that will only take one recommendation. So in that case, it has to be an academic one. Sometimes colleges will say they'll accept up to 3. And if you have 2 academic and there is another recommendation, let's say you were camp counselor for several years, or you were coaching basketball over the summer, or you did a great internship, and that person has written you a recommendation, you are welcome to include that. I would encourage you not to include more than what they've asked for, because I know as a reader, if sometimes there was a lot of material in a folder, and I would open it, because we used to read before reading online, and feel this this dread. I don't want anyone opening anybody's applications from Andover and having that there's so much here. We don't want any admissions people having that moment before they've read you. So you want to be careful about sending too much material.
Who else had a question? Yes. In the red dress. Yeah.
Okay, so if I am applying for festival early decision, but I'm not sure, should I submit the transfer to release form now, or by October 1st, or wait until?
That's a good question. I think you could talk to your counselor. So her question was, if I think I'm applying early decision somewhere with a November 1st deadline, but I'm not entirely sure, should I pass in the transcript release form by October 1st? I would say talk to your counselor and let them know where you're at, and then your counselor can let you know, by what date they would actually need you to make that decision by. That's a good question.
And if some of you are having that difficulty making that choice and you haven't had a chance to visit the school and it fits in your calendar, and also just it's not so far away that it's affordable for you to get on the campus, I'd really encourage you to go back and have even a second look, because that can sort of help solidify the decision to apply or not apply early decision, because that sometimes is tricky, and we all wish we had a crystal ball to sort of see, will I get in? Will they want me? Do I want them? But sometimes just getting back on campus again can be really helpful for you in making those tricky decisions. Who else has a question? The question was, how are merit scholarships determined? Usually on each school does it a little differently, and this is again where I use the phrase the common application experience, because there's always a little caveat someone wants to do it a different way. But for the most part, merit scholarships, which are awarded to you, and you would find out about them when and if you were accepted, and they usually will come close to your acceptance letter, or in some cases it will come with your acceptance letter, are something that you don't necessarily apply for. Unlike financial aid, where you would be applying for financial aid, the merit scholarship happens organically when they're reading the application, and the reader or a group of readers or committee might decide, hey, this student was outstanding in so many of these application materials that we want to award the student a merit scholarship, which is money given to you that you don't have to pay back. It's just sort of free money given to you, and it may take off some of your total bill. And those merit scholarships can be really big. And in particular, if you're a really strong student academically and/or you have other special talents and you apply to a school that maybe you're on the high end of their admit pool with high scores and high GPAs and other strong facets to your application, they want you to come. They want to have these students. They're always looking for high ability students on their campus, so they might give you a great deal of money that, when all said and done, might make that school be a real option for you. Some of the schools will say on their website that if you are applying for a merit scholarship, they may ask for additional information, another testing score, or through the process, they may send a mailer to you and ask you to submit additional materials, and they will let you know what they need. And again, when you meet with your counselor, we can sort of help you thinking about different schools that might be ones where you might qualify for a merit scholarship, because the merit scholarship is fabulous.
Other questions? Oh, sorry. Good question.
Okay. So the PowerPoint, rumor has it, that we are going to be emailing this to you. Okay, so you should get an email from us in the next couple of days that would include this PowerPoint. This is similar to the PowerPoint we did for parents last week, and so we're going to be emailing to all senior parents and students. So then you can study it every night before you go to bed, so you'll know exactly what you're doing, okay? Who else has a question? Do you want to wrap up? Okay. Any other points you want to make? Any other points?
Any other last questions? Okay. All right, so what you should be, like, some of you are like, well, what should I be doing right now? Okay, so if you are still exploring colleges, it is a really great idea to continue to go on official tours of the colleges. I feel like an official tour is the best way to see if it's a good match for you. Oftentimes you'll be able to go into a dorm room that they'll show you. You'll be able to, like, maybe eat in their cafeteria, see all their different academic buildings, and really see what the student body looks like to see if you would feel comfortable at that college. So that's something you definitely should be doing now. Another thing you should be doing now, if you look at the back of your packet that we gave you, I'm just going to borrow it. We gave you this senior college application checklist. Okay, so if everybody has their senior application college checklist, this is a great way to show you what you should be doing in this process as a timeline as well. Okay, we'll give that back. So your counselor will be having an individual meeting with you. So in order for us to have the most effective individual meeting with you, if once you have completed your student data sheet on Naviance, and the more thoroughly you answer those questions, the better recommendation we can write for you. So once you have completed your student data sheet, once your parent or guardian has completed the parent questionnaire, please either email us or come see us or leave us a note so that we can set up your individual college appointment. And at that point, any questions that you guys have, we'll go over with you. Again, we're very happy to look at your college essay. We're happy to answer any questions you guys might be having on your common application, because I know that that's a long process to fill out. So we can answer any of those questions for you. So once you're ready, please contact us so that we can have that individual appointment with you. We are devoted to our seniors in the fall. This is your time with us. So we really want to make sure that we see all of you. I want to see all of you, of my students, definitely before we leave for that winter break to make sure that everybody is on track. We also want to let you know that this can be a stressful process. So if you're stressed, come see us. We can talk you through it. And there is a place for everyone. Okay? So whether you're going to college, whether you're going into the military, whether you're working, whether you're taking a gap year, whether you're doing a PG year, a postgraduate year, there is an amazing place for all of you, and we're going to help you get to that place.
I just want to add one more thing before we're going to break up into counselor groups where we're going to hand out your transcript. I worked, like I said, for admissions for 20 years, and I was in charge of Massachusetts. And so I knew of Andover High School well before you were even here in Andover. I'm originally from Maine. I'm not from Massachusetts. I got to know all the different public and private schools in the state. And Andover has an excellent reputation in the world of college admissions. We know that this is a rigorous program. We know that your classes are demanding, whether you be in AP, enriched, honors, or college, demanding college prep, or just standard college courses. They are all demanding, and they mean a lot to the different readers. So you've already got that going for you. I know we always hear of students, how hard it is to get in. No one's getting in. Who can get into this college? There are students getting in every year, and our Andover students do really well through the admissions process. So feel good about the fact that you've been here. Feel good that you have had this opportunity to be in this school environment, because it's really setting you up for future success, not only in the admissions process, but whatever it is that you're doing once you leave here. So, pat on the back to you for doing such a great job.